Hi there, it's Steph. Thanks for popping by. Today I'm sharing with you a card I made using a Lawn Fawn stamp set called Critters from the Sea. I've sped up the process because it was quite long and I didn't want you to get bored. I've tried that new technique, which is basically a dotted shading. So it's basically you use your first color and you dot the whole image, and then you leave a bit of space and you start your second color, not from the edge, from a bit further as you can see now, and you do the dots on the whole part of the image. So in that case, the whale. I did decide to leave the fin. I think it's called the fin. Do not dot the whole fin with all the colors, just to create a bit of more shading, more depth. Then I started with my third color, as you can see here, so that's probably C5, and then here C7. So as I go, you can see the bottom of the whale is darker than the top, and essentially it's mostly a lot of dots, as tiny as possible. I try not to squeeze the nib too much against paper, and as you go, it kind of creates a shading, but every time you add a layer, it kind of blends with the dots that are already there. So the result is quite cool, and that's a different Copic technique, which I was just trying to do something a bit different with Copic markers, and I found that technique on YouTube by someone who does really good Copic coloring, and I thought that was quite cool, and I would give it a go. So yeah, here we go. If you fancy trying that out, it's different, it's new, it's interesting. For the algae, I used 3 different shades of green. I'm not giving you the number because it's not, use whatever you have. I'm sure you have a combo of greens with a darker, medium, and a light color. And for that one, I did normal coloring, just blending the colors together. Then I will start onto the sand. So for the sand, I only used 2 colors really. And I try to create some shading by picking up the darker color of a bit of laminated paper. And I find that it works for me a bit better than the acrylic block, because the acrylic block I use for stamping and things, so then you have to clean them with alcohol to remove the dried ink, Copic ink on it, and it wasn't working for me that great. So that's where my laminated piece of paper comes into play. So I use my darker color that I apply to the paper, and then I just pick it up, and as you can see, the result is pretty subtle and it blends pretty well within the other lighter sand color. So I thought that was pretty cool. Here again, pretty simple coloring, basic coloring, and I used a little bit of my colorless blender that I dotted throughout the sand to look like little dots of sand, and it adds a little bit more texture. So here I decided to add a bit more shading onto my whale. As I go through the coloring of that card, at first the whale looked really dark, and then you add the algae and you add the sand and you think, oh, the whale needs a bit more. So that's where I just added a little bit more coloring, and same technique, little dots here and it didn't take super long, but it's still, it takes a bit of patience. So here's a sea, and with the sea, I was thinking, my god, what am I going to do with that? I don't know how to color the sea in a way that it looks textured. I'm mostly doing blending, and I didn't quite know where to start, so I decided to add a few waves, which I didn't stamp. I just drawn them, and then I decided to add a lighter blue, and then I thought, how about if I add a few dots so it matches the whale? So I've kind of done that. I've picked up the darker blue of the laminated piece of paper, and I just dotted a lot of dots. It really was a lot of dots onto my paper. And what I like about that is that it's not light or it's not dark, it's actually a bit in between. I'm looking at the card, the real card right now, and you can see on the card it's not uniform. There's texture to it, it's not flat. It's a bit more interesting than if I had done a plain blue background. Bear in mind, it's the first time I do a sea with Copic coloring, I think. So I was a bit, I tried something which I thought may work. I'm actually happy that it did work. So if you wanted to try something like that, I think working with 2 colors, you could even work with 3 colors. It's just 2 was working for me. So here we go. And I left a little bit of white at just above all the waves, so it looks like I'm not sure how it's called, but that white thing that you see on the top of the sea, or maybe the edge of the sea. Or maybe, no, on the top of the sea, when the waves are coming toward the beach, you see that white thing on the top of the waves. I'm not sure it's called, but that's kind of what I had in mind. So here we go. So I keep dotting until I'm happy with it. And I mean, I think you see better on the close-up photo. So if you want to head over to my blog, I think you will appreciate more the work that went into coloring this thing, because it did go on for quite a while. Once I was done with that, I colored the little Bernal hermite. I'm not sure it's called in English. The little crab in the shell at the bottom. And I wanted to add a little bit more color because I thought it was a bit dark and I kind of like bright colors. So I decided to color him in orange, and then I decided to add a little bit of yellow in the sky because I didn't have a stamp for the sun. So I thought if I add a bit of yellow, it will be like remind you of the sun, and that's quite cool as well. So here for the Bernal hermite, I'm using the same dotted technique. I'm using 3 shades. So I used orange, a darker orange. Was it red actually? You know what? I'm looking at it and I think it was red for the shell, sorry, and orange for the actual crab body part. And I tried to create some shading there as well. Going back to the sea, I did a little stain I was trying to hide. Here we go, that's the orange part to the crab. So here, you know, basic coloring. But if you look at their shell, their real shell, I think there is a little bit of dots or something on it. So their shell are not like just one color. So that's actually, well, it's not quite true, but it's not far off the truth. So here's the yellow part. I added some dark yellow in the middle, and then lighter shade, and then another lighter shade. And I think it dresses the top part of the card as well. I actually did consider coloring the sky, and then I thought, no, that will not end well. You know that less is more. I think sometimes you kind of have to look at your card, you know, put it away from you, look at it and think, I think that's enough now. So that's what I did there. Then I glued it onto a card front, and I still felt like something was missing, so I decided to do stitch frame all around it, and I think that was a good decision. It helped me add something to the top part of that card, but not adding too much to it. So I think that was a good decision for me. And I will also add a bit of Spectrum, I'm assuming it's Spectrum Black. I'm not quite sure what the name is. It's a nice crafter who sent that to me, actually. It's a very nice goodie present, and I just added it onto the waves and the sea, and that just adds a lot of sparkle and shine, and I thought that was quite nice. I mean, obviously you only see it when you're looking at the light, it will not pop up on the video, but I think it was a nice little addition. Here you go, I'm here coloring, adding a bit of sparkle, and it's quite nice. So that's my card for today. I hope you find that technique interesting. Please do head over to my blog, have a look at the photos, because I think it's really nice. Here you can see a little bit more. So thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Bye!